In the surprise of the offseason, Bill Belichick still hasn't been signed by any team. He hasn't been offered the head coaching gig anywhere, despite being the winningest head coach of the past 20 years, despite having been to 9 Super Bowls since taking over as the Patriots head coach. And we've heard this stat all over sports media about how Belichick hasn't been successful outside of Tom Brady, but you do have to remember the year that Tom Brady took over, Drew Bledsoe was the quarterback for a portion of the year. Then ultimately in the Super Bowl, Belichick went with Tom Brady instead of Bledsoe. They won that Super Bowl and the rest is history. There was at least a lone season of success. And even the season that Tom Brady was injured, Brady got hurt in week 1, was out for the full season. Belichick won 11 games that year. They went 11-5 and just in a fluke missed the playoffs because it was just a weird year that 11-5 wasn't good enough. Now I've got it. Since Brady left, Patriots have not been good. Even so, you would think not only would the teams that have vacancies be interested in bringing Belichick in, but you would think there are teams around the league who didn't think they needed a new head coach that would go, if we can get Belichick, do we drop the guy we have right now? I would have thought that Dallas would have definitely been a team that would go, you know what? I'd rather have Belichick than McCarthy. The team that Belichick has been the closest to signing with so far was the Falcons. They interviewed him 2 times, and it seems like they were pretty close, but according to several sources, Belichick wanted the same level of power in Atlanta that he had in New England. I think Atlanta viewed that as a big-time problem. Belichick hasn't re-signed a player from the first 3 rounds of a Patriots draft since 2013. That shows that you're not so great at this scouting thing, the recruiting thing, the drafting thing, as most head coaches really aren't. They're not great at that. That's not where their specialty is. Not in the NFL. You're not watching college football all day on Saturday. You're watching NFL film. You're getting ready for tomorrow. You're not really focused on the college game as much. Sure, you're watching the primetime games here and there. Sure, you're catching highlights. Sure, you're seeing things. But overall, Belichick hasn't been good at drafting. Hasn't been a good GM. So the Falcons wanted a head coach, and they went with Raheem Morris. Colin Cowherd pointed this out on his podcast. Arthur Blank hasn't really gone for the rock star head coach. He hasn't gone for the established head coach. He's always gone for the up-and-coming types of head coaches. Dan Quinn had never been a head coach before, so he hired him. Arthur Smith hadn't been a head coach before, so he hired him. He doesn't really go for anyone who's established and happens to be let go. But all of this begs the question, is this it for Bill Belichick? Is this really how it's going to end? Technically, this offseason, the answer's not yet. There are still 2 head coaching vacancies, the Seahawks and the Commanders, but he hasn't interviewed with either one, which I find fascinating because I actually would think that the Commanders would be a really good spot for him. But let's not forget this bombshell report from a week ago. This could be Andy Reid's last season. The Chiefs are clearly a team that's ready to win right now. In fact, they're a team that they are winning right now. They could be interested in a guy like Bill Belichick. They could be interested in a guy like Pete Carroll, who, to my knowledge, hasn't taken any interviews yet. They could be interested in one of those 2 guys because those 2 coaches definitely want to win right now. But even if Bill Belichick doesn't get a job this coaching cycle, there should be a good amount of vacancies next season too. Look, the Bears with Matt Eberflus, this is probably his last chance this season. And if he doesn't pull it off this season, doesn't show improvement this season, he's probably gone. The Giants with Brian Daboll, if he doesn't show improvement this season, he's probably gone. The Jets with Robert Saleh. I think this is Robert Saleh's last chance, but I also know that owners and ownership groups, they kind of have long memories. They probably still haven't forgiven Bill Belichick for agreeing to be their head coach, signing with them as their head coach, and then retiring just to force their hand so that they had to trade him to New England. He forced his way out of there before even getting started. I got it. That was over 20 years ago. Yeah, they got a long memory for stuff like that. They might have a policy that says we will not ever hire Bill Belichick under any circumstances. And then potentially the Cowboys will be a vacancy next year. Mike McCarthy's only got 1 year left on his contract, so he's going to coach through this season. And Jerry Jones hasn't given any indication that he's going to re-sign McCarthy. Easily, you could see Belichick winding up there anyways. The trick is going to be, is one of these teams willing to concede some power to Bill Belichick to let him win the way that he wants to win, let him run the team the way he wants to? Or is Bill Belichick willing to relinquish a little bit of power and work with a GM and understand my job is to just be the coach, your job's to be the GM. Let's go win in a style that I haven't in a long time, in a format that I haven't in a long time, but one that has worked for plenty of other organizations. Can Bill Belichick accept his role as a head coach, not a GM? Please be sure to hit that like button, hit that subscribe button for more content surrounding happenings of the NFL, the MLB, the NHL, the NBA, the NCAA, the ABCD, the NWA, sports world. Please subscribe.